What was that? A stray radio signal? Your own mind playing tricks on you? Or was it something else? Those are the exact questions that kickstart any real paranormal investigation. This isn't about jumping at shadows, it's about methodically finding the light switch. This is your first step into a world where history and technology collide to explain the unexplainable. Welcome to the unseen world.
It's the dead of a New England winter, 1692, in the small isolated village of Salem. Suddenly, a strange and terrifying affliction takes hold of two young girls. They scream, twist their bodies into impossible shapes, and babble about spectral figures pinching and tormenting them. The local doctor can't find a thing wrong with them. And in a community steeped in the deep-seated fear of the devil, that could mean only one thing: witchcraft. And this was the spark that would ignite America's deadliest witch hunt. It was a firestorm of accusation and fear that would leave a permanent scar on the nation, and some say it also left behind restless spirits that still haunt the blood-soaked grounds of Salem to this day. It all started in early 1692. The violent, bizarre fits of 9-year-old Petty Parrish and her 11-year-old cousin Abigail Williams soon spread to other young women in the village, like 12-year-old Ann Putnam Jr. In this panic tightened its grip on the Puritan community, the girls were pressured to name their tormentors, and they pointed their fingers at three social outcasts: a beggar named Sarah Good, an elderly sickly woman named Sarah Osborne, and an enslaved woman in Reverend Parrish's own household named Tituba. And the public examinations began on March 1st, 1692. And while Good and Osborne insisted they were innocent, it was Tituba's confession, likely beaten out of her, that turned the growing paranoia into a full-blown crisis. And she spoke of signing the devil's book and seeing other witches in the colony. And her wild story gave the magistrates exactly what they wanted: proof. But the most damning evidence was the court's decision to accept spectral evidence. This meant that if an accuser claimed the ghostly apparition of an accused person was tormenting them, it was taken as solid fact. And in their world, the devil couldn't take the shape of an innocent person, so this was as good as a conviction, and the floodgates were officially open. And by May, the jails were overflowing, and Governor William V set up a special court of warrior interpreter, meaning to hear and determine to handle the crisis. The trials themselves were a horrifying spectacle. The so-called afflicted girls would writhe and scream in the courtroom, claiming the specter of the accused was attacking them at that very moment. And on June 10th, Bridget Bishop, a tavern owner known for her sharp tongue, became the first person executed for witchcraft. And she was hanged at a barren ridge that would become known as Proctor's Ledge. And the hangings continued all summer. Respected community members like Rebecca Nurse and Sarah Good were executed on July 19th. And on August 19th, 5 more people were hanged, including the former minister George Burroughs, who stunned the crowd by perfectly reciting the Lord's Prayer from the gallows, something it was believed a witch could never do. But the most brutal death came in September. An elderly farmer named Giles Corey refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. For this, he was subjected to an ancient and brutal torture, being slowly crushed under heavy stones. And for 2 days he lay silent, and his only words were a defiant cry for more weight. Corey died on September 19th, but by refusing to plead, he protected his property for his sons. Legend says that with his dying breath, he cast a curse upon Sheriff George Corwin and all of Salem. By the fall, it was clear that hysteria had spun out of control. And when accusations started reaching the colony's most prominent citizens, including the governor's own wife, influential ministers finally spoke out against the use of spectral evidence. And on October 29th, Governor Phipps dissolved the court. The remaining prisoners were eventually released, and in 1697, the colony held a day of fasting and repentance. And in total, more than 200 people were accused, 19 were hanged, and 1 man was pressed to death, and at least 5 others died in jail. But the story doesn't just end there. Salem's bloody history gave rise to chilling ghost lore. In Proctor's Ledge, the confirmed execution site is now a solemn memorial, but some visitors report a heavy atmosphere of sorrow, seeing strange mist and hearing disembodied whispers after dark. And it's said the spirits of Bridget Bishop, Rebecca Nurse, and the others are still tied to the land where they were unjustly killed. And what about Giles Corey's curse? Well, Sheriff George Corwin died suddenly just 4 years later at age 30 from a heart ailment. The local legend claims that every sheriff in Salem until the office was moved in 1991 either died in the office or retired due to a similar condition. And even the Witch House, the former home of Judge Jonathan Corwin and the only building still standing with direct ties to the trials, is said to be haunted. And visitors report an oppressive feeling in the sound of phantom footsteps and the sight of shadowy figures in the windows. The Salem witch trial serves a terrifying lesson on the dangers of fear, extremism, and mass hysteria. And if you want to explore more of history's most haunting tales, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And the ghosts of Salem are more than just campfire stories. They are the echoes of real people who were stolen from their families and stripped of their names. And whether you believe in spirits or not, the tragic legacy of the witch trials haunts America to this day. A chilling reminder that the most dangerous monsters are often the ones that we create ourselves. Thanks for listening. For over 300 years, the story of Maud Dyer has been one of America's great ghost stories. A witch chased out by a mob on a freezing night who died cursing the very land beneath her. Most people consider her simple folklore. But what if she was real? Tucked away in a 17th century shipping record, a clue surfaced. The name of a woman who landed in Maryland right when the legend begins. And today we're following the paper trail to see if we can finally separate the woman from the witch. First, we need to understand the legend. As the tale goes, Maud Dyer was an older outcast living in a cabin near Leonardtown, Maryland in the late 1600s. When the brutal winter of 1697 to 1698 brought a deadly epidemic, panicked colonists blamed her for witchcraft. And one night a mob burned her cabin. And she escaped into a blizzard, but days later a boy found her body frozen solid to a large boulder, her hand supposedly burned into the stone. It's a terrifying tale, but is it just a story? And to find out, we have to understand her world. Colonial Maryland was a rough place where the fear of witchcraft was very real and written into law. In 1685, just a decade before Maud's supposed death, a woman named Rebecca Fowler was tried and executed for witchcraft in a nearby county, the only official execution of its kind in Maryland's history. It set a chilling precedent. And on top of this, records confirmed the winter of 1697-1698 was horrific, bringing a great epidemic that caused widespread death. And the stage was set for a witch hunt. Finding direct proof is nearly impossible because on March 8, 1831, the Leonardtown courthouse burned down, destroying almost all colonial-era records. But the first real clue wasn't in a courthouse. It was in a ship's log. An immigration record from October 1677 lists passengers arriving in Maryland, including a woman named Mary Dyer. In the 17th century, Maud was an incredibly common nickname for Mary. And for the first time, this gives us a real person with the right name in the right place and at the right time. So who was this Mary Dyer? The record lists her as being transported, which usually meant she was an indentured servant. After her service, she would have been free but poor. By the time of the Great Winter in the late 1690s, she would have been an older unmarried woman with no family to protect her. This profile of an outsider perfectly matches the woman from the legend. An older woman living alone, perhaps with some knowledge of herbal remedies, would have been an easy scapegoat when a plague hit. This kind of historical detective work is exactly what I do here. If you love deep dives that separate fact from folklore, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next investigation. The bombshell isn't proving Maud Dyer was a witch. It's realizing a real woman was likely at the heart of the legend. Let's put the pieces together. The immigration record gives us a possible person. The historical fear of witchcraft of Rebecca Fowler's execution provided motive for persecution. The documented epidemic and severe winter give us the catalyst, and the courthouse fire explains why her true story was lost to history, surviving only as folklore. And this is the tragic story of an immigrant named Mary Dyer, scapegoated by a terrified community. The curse was likely a story invented later to explain away their guilt. Today, the legend is honored, but the focus has shifted. In 2021, Leonardtown officially declared February 26 Maul Dyer Day to remember the area's folklore. The famous Maul Dyer Rock, once outside the old county jail, now sits under a protective cover at the St. Mary's County Historical Society. So did we find the real Maul Dyer? We found a Mary Dyer who arrived in 1677 in a world ready to create a witch. While there's no smoking gun, the evidence strongly suggests one of America's most famous ghost stories is really the tragic, true story of a woman that history chose to forget. And I'll let you guys ponder that. Thanks for listening. This 300-year-old trial explains everything wrong today. You feel like one wrong step online and you're the villain? We call it cancel culture, but this isn't new. This is the story of Grace Sherwood, and her 300-year-old witchcraft trial is a mirror to our world today. And the Witch of Pungo. In 1700s Virginia, Grace Sherwood was an independent healer and farmer, and that made her a target. Neighbors blamed her for everything from dead livestock to failed crops. After her neighbors suffered a miscarriage, the whispers became a formal charge: witchcraft. A jury of women found two unusual marks on her body, and the court, unsure what to do, ordered a medieval trial by water. The trial by water. The logic was twisted. Pure water rejects evil. A witch would float, the innocent would sink. It was a test you couldn't win. On July 10, 1706, Grace was tied up and thrown into a river. She floated. And to the crowd, that was proof. She was jailed for about 7 years. 300 years later, to the day, Virginia's governor finally formally restored her name. The analytical pivot. So why does this matter now? Because the machine that crushed her, social pressure and public spectacle, is still running today. It's just gone digital. The fear of witchcraft is now our culture war. Whispers are now viral tweets, and the ducking stool is the internet's unforgiving court of public opinion. Deconstructing the mirror. And the parallels are clear. First, the scapegoat. Communities facing complex fears hunt for a simple target. Grace was theirs. Today we turn people into symbols for systematic problems to feel a false sense of control. Second, public shaming. Her trial was a public ritual to divide good from evil. An online pile-on is the same performance, signaling your own virtue by joining the mob. And finally, no due process. The evidence against Grace was superstition. She was guilty until proven innocent. Today, it's verdict first, evidence later. And out of context quote is the new witch's mark. And the conclusions? We look back at Grace Sherwood's trial and feel superior. But have we really evolved? The tools changed from ducking stools to smartphones, but the psychology is the same. We still crave simple villains for complex fears. And Grace's story is a warning. It asks, when we join online outrage, are we seeking justice, or are we just standing on the riverbank waiting to see if they float? Y'all have a good night. Thanks for listening. Imagine this. It's 1820 on a small farm in Tennessee, and a man named John Bell is on his deathbed. His family is watching in horror as an unseen entity torments him, its voice echoing through their home and boasting that it was poisoning him. Bell died on December 20th. And immediately after, his family found a strange vial filled with a dark liquid in the cupboard. And the entity, which had nicknamed itself Kate, bragged that it had given John a fatal dose. To test the claim, they gave a single drop to the family cat, and it died almost instantly. This terrifying event wasn't a quiet, ghostly haunting. It was violent, loud, and aggressive. And it was the work of something humanity has a very specific name for, a name that reveals exactly what it is. The word we use for these phenomena, poltergeist, comes directly from the German language, and it's a combination of two words, poltern meaning to knock or to make a loud noise, and geist meaning ghost or spirit. So a poltergeist, quite literally, is a noisy ghost or a rumble spirit. The term first appeared in English text around the 1840s, giving a name to the force that had been terrorizing people for centuries. But long before the German term became well known, cultures all over the world were reporting the same kind of terrifying activity. And in the first century, the historian Flavius Josephus wrote about an exorcism where, as proof of the spirit had departed, a bowl of water placed far from the afflicted person overturned on its own. And similar accounts of noisy, disruptive spirits pop up in the histories of Brazil, Australia, Japan, and all across Europe, proving this is a truly global mystery. In northern England, they weren't even called poltergeists, they were called boggarts. The most infamous account in American history is the one that started it all for the Bell family, the legend of the Bell Witch. The haunting started subtly in 1817 in what is now Adams, Tennessee. John Bell saw a bizarre creature in his field with the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. He shot at it and it vanished. Soon after, the real terror began inside the house. The family was subjected to knocking sounds, had their bed sheets ripped from them as they slept, and were pinched, slapped, and tormented by an invisible force. The main targets were John Bell himself and his young daughter Betsy. Eventually, the entity developed a voice and took on the nickname Kate, sometimes claiming to be the witch of a neighbor, Kate Batts. Kate terrorized the family for years, violently opposing Betsy's engagement to a local boy named Joshua Gardner. The major disturbances only subsided in 1821 after Betsy, under immense pressure, broke off the engagement. However, the entity promised to return, and it did so briefly in 1828. Centuries later, in Ocean Away, another case would capture the world's attention and introduce a powerful element of doubt. The year was 1977, and in a council house in Enfield, London. Peggy Hodgson, a single mother, called the police to report the furniture was sliding across the floor. The responding police officer even signed a statement that she saw a chair move inexplicably. What followed was a 2-year siege of paranormal activity. The Hodgson children, especially 11-year-old Janet, were at the center of it all. There were more than 2,000 documented incidents, including reports of levitation, thrown toys, strange knocking sounds, and even a gruff, disembodied voice that seemed to speak through Janet. But the Enfield case also exposed the central problem of poltergeist investigations. The investigators themselves caught the girls faking some of the events. Janet was filmed bending spoons and caught banging a broomstick on the ceiling. While the investigators believed that only some of the phenomenon were faked, skeptics pointed to this as proof of an elaborate hoax. Then there are the photos that supposedly show Janet levitating. Skeptics argue that they just show her jumping on the bed, but the photographer and other investigators maintain they witnessed genuine and possible movements. So what exactly is a poltergeist? This is the core of the mystery. Skeptics argue that most cases are just clever trickery, often by adolescents seeking attention in a stressful household. The admitted pranks at Enfield and theories that Betsy Bell might have used ventriloquism seem to support this idea. And another theory points not to spirits but to the living. This is called recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or PK. And this idea suggests that the incredible stress and hormonal changes of adolescence could cause a person to unconsciously project mental energy into the physical world, moving objects without ever touching them. And then there's the original explanation, a spirit, a noisy, chaotic, and sometimes malevolent ghost. And believers point to the hundreds of documented eyewitnesses, from police officers to journalists, who have sworn they saw something impossible. From an ancient German word to a Tennessee farmhouse and a London council house, the story of the poltergeist is a story of chaos invading the ordinary. And it's a phenomenon that sits uncomfortably between documented fact, outright fraud, and the enduring power of the human mind. A definitive answer may never be found, but the accounts persist, leaving us all to wonder what really happens when the knocking starts. And if you enjoyed this exploration into the unknown, Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more strange histories. And let me know in the comments which poltergeist case you find the most compelling. Whether they are troubled spirits or troubled minds, poltergeists force us to question the very boundary between the world we can see and the unsettling forces that might just lie beyond it.